Hi folks, I'm Natasha and welcome to my channel. This video is going to be my June wrap-up. It's all the books that I read in June. To date, this has been the most books I've read in a month of my adult life, which is like a great way to start booktube, I figured, because I read 17 books this month, which is a lot. Some of the books that I read this month. How do people do this? So I had a lot of time to read this month. I'm currently unemployed, so I had more than enough time to just sit down and read my ass off. And so I'm gonna give you guys some stats over here, my book stats, if you will, because I track that and I think it's kind of fun. So as I mentioned, I read 17 books this month, which equals out to 6,297, which is a lot. That averages out for each book being 370 pages, equals out to 210 pages read each day in June. That's more than normal. I rate things based off of Goodreads star ratings. Sometimes I'll sort of like interpret it as half stars, like 3.5, instead of like, you know, if it's between a 3 and a 4. Very rarely will I rate a book 1 star. Typically a 1-star book to me is something I didn't finish. I always try to look for a positive when I'm reviewing books. So to me, a 2-star is like, hey, I finished it, but I didn't like it. So again, some stats. This month I gave 5 books 2 stars, 3 books 3 stars, 6 books 4 stars, and only 3 books 5 stars. It's gonna go in books that I read at the end of the month and down because I don't feel like stacking them differently. So one of the books I read was You and Me and Him by Chris Dinninson. This is kind of a young adult which centers around a girl and her gay best friend, so there's a little bit of nice diversity in with that. They live in a small town and a new boy moves to town and they both fall in love with him, or like him, and it kind of just talks about friendship. I thought it was okay. The female character is overweight and I just thought the way that the author wrote about that was a little annoying to me. She really didn't have to be, and yeah, it kind of just didn't wrap up the way that I thought it would be, so I enjoyed it. I sped through it pretty quickly and I gave this one 3 stars. Next up I read The Universe vs. Alex Woods by Gavin Extance. So this book is about a teenager and he sort of talks about how he was struck by a meteorite when he was a child. His mom is a little quirky. He talks about him meeting sort of an older man who ends up becoming his friend, and just talks about their friendship. Now there is a major twist sort of in this book. I thought it was going to be pretty lighthearted and it ended up tackling a really serious subject matter, but it tackled it very well. And I wasn't expecting to like this book as much as I did, but I cried at the end and I really liked it. So then it says, at age 17, Alex is stopped at customs with 113 grams of marijuana, an urn full of ashes on his passenger seat, and an entire nation in uproar. He's fairly certain he's done the right thing. Very interesting, and it was like very well written. I come to find out that this was like the first book of this author, who I'd never heard of, but I'm going to be keeping an eye out for because I really like this, and I believe I rated this one 4 stars. I don't know why I didn't rate it 5, because I actually really liked it. Up next, I read The Art of Crash Landing, which is a novel by Melissa McCarlow. This is more of an adult contemporary book. It talks about a woman named Maddie who's 30 years old. She just so happens to be homeless and pregnant and has all of her belongings in like 6 garbage bags and has a rusted old car. It talks a lot about family dynamics and she finds out a lot about her mother and her grandmother. This took me through turns as well. Like I wasn't expecting much when I read it. This is a book I picked up for like I think 4 for $10, so I got it really cheap and it was really good. Again, like it was a lot of things that I didn't see expected. I loved the writing. Yeah, I don't know. This was like, again, like another just fantastic book that I wouldn't have otherwise heard of or picked up if it wasn't on like a sale table at Chapters. I loved how the author talked about sort of finding out things about your family members that you wouldn't otherwise know. I really enjoy interesting family dynamics in books, and this one was really good, and I think I rated this one 4 stars as well. I read Eleanor in Park by Rainbow Rowell, and yeah, you either love this book or you hate this book. I absolutely love this book because I think about 20 pages in and continually through the rest of the book I felt so many feels. It choked up thinking about it just because the subject matter in this hits home for me. This is about a girl named Eleanor, which is actually my mother's name, so maybe that's sort of had something to do with it, I don't know. It's a girl named Eleanor and a boy named Park, and it's set over a school year, and she does not have a good home life, and he kind of is subject of kind of bullying. They both sort of are. But man, the discussions about Eleanor's home life and her family, whew, I'm not necessarily familiar with it myself, but I had a lot of friends in similar situations, and like I said, there was parts of this book I had to literally like put it down and go, okay, I'm feeling all the feels. I cried several times reading this book, and it hit me like I haven't had a book hit me like that in a long time. I highly suggest this if you're looking for like a sort of unconventional teenage romance, family dynamic, high school bullying, that kind of thing. It is wild. Like it's good, and I gave this 5 stars because I haven't had a book make me feel all the feels. I felt so many feels to this. 20s Girl by Sophie Kinsella, and this I absolutely loved. I wasn't expecting to like this book that much either. Another one that I picked up at the thrift store for like dirt cheap, and pretty much what caught me was on the back it says that it's a girl who gets sort of haunted by her dead great aunt, and I absolutely love books that are told from like an older person's perspective. I don't know why, but those books just like hit me and then they make me cry. I love it, and this was actually really funny because the main character is in her 20s, and then her great aunt is also sort of haunts her while she's in her 20s. So that's why they call it sort of 20s Girl, because her aunt was in her 20s when she is a ghost. Anyway, I really liked this. I liked the dynamic again between the family members and learning more about each other, and there's a really nice, like, cute romance in this, which I loved. I wasn't expecting a lot of the things by the end of the book, sort of the talk about, like, the ghost past life and all that stuff. It was great. This is again a book that, like, I didn't know much about, but then I ended up, like, really liking it as it sort of went on. I do have to admit that the ghost, like the great aunt, was kind of annoying. At certain times it was like, girl. But I'm happy that I pushed through because the way that the story wrapped up was just awesome. I cried at the end of this too, and again, I wasn't sad. I cried out of like happiness. I think I gave this one 4 stars. Alright, about halfway through the month I read all of the Hunger Games series, finally. I read them for the first time, and I also watched all of the movies for the first time. And so that was a lot of book to read. I didn't take any breaks in between these. I read them back to back, and I have opinions. I might do like a whole separate video because I know the Hunger Games is like a lot of people's favorite thing. It's not mine. First book I liked. I thought it was pretty good, and to be honest, if it would have just wrapped up here, totally fine. If this was just a standalone book, I would have been like, alright, cool, that was good. I like the concept of the Hunger Games. I like the sort of world building between the districts and all that stuff. I have absolutely no emotional connection to any of the characters. Don't give a shit about Katniss, don't give a shit about Peeta. Kind of care about Gale, but other than that, don't give a shit about any of the characters. But I liked the games themselves and the way that it was written. So I think I gave this 3 stars. Catching Fire, which obviously talks more about the politics behind the Hunger Games. I was like, I didn't like any of the politics behind it except for getting in again to the actual games themselves. To me, the games are pretty much the most interesting part of the whole series, and I think I could read 3 books about just various Hunger Games. That was interesting. Didn't care for the love interest. Again, by the second book, I really didn't care about the characters. I gave this, I think, 2 stars just because I didn't care. But then knowing how much I didn't care, I read the last book because I felt like I had to. And I super didn't care about this. Man, I don't like books about war, especially like fictional made-up war. It's like I don't care. And I honestly knew what was coming by the end of it. Like, it was no surprise to me. I wasn't like, oh my. Same thing when we watched the movies. I was just, I don't care. I gave this 2 stars, and it's just not the series for me. I wish I felt more for the characters. I feel bad for Gale, but like that's about that's about it. Up next I read Attachments by Rainbow Rowell. This book is kind of cute. It talks about 2 friends who are at work, and it's set in Y2K era, so it's 1999, and you know, they just sort of have the internet and text messaging and stuff on their work computers. So it talks about two female friends who are messaging and emailing each other on their work computers, and there's an IT guy who's hired to sort of track people's emails to see if they're up to like anything or saying like inappropriate stuff. And basically he reads the one girl's emails and falls in love with her without ever knowing who she is and meeting her. It was okay, like I read it and it was decent enough. I like the sort of Y2K era because I'm old, so I was alive during that. I don't know, to me it wasn't anything super memorable. Good, like it was okay, I read it and went, oh, alright, like let's move on to something else. I gave it a 3-star rating because to me, I was just sort of neutral about it. Next up is another series that I finished. First I read this book, which is The Rosie Project, and then I moved on to The Rosie Effect. These books are beautiful. They're in that like rubbery texture, and it's pretty much the reason why I picked them up. I got these both at like thrift stores. All my books that I bought, you guys want a haul? All of those I've got from thrift stores. So it focuses on the character Don Tillman, who he's very, very particular and unique, and I think he's sort of on like the autism spectrum, although they kind of talk about it a little bit in the book, but you're not really sure if he is. They never really confirm that. But he's very, very meticulous and very like schedule driven, and so he starts up this thing in order to meet a wife, and he starts like a 16-page questionnaire in order to find like the perfect woman for him, and he ends up meeting Rosie, obviously. It's right there. And they talk about their romance and whatever. I got this. I didn't mind it. It was okay. Like, I got through this and thought, oh, okay, the romance is alright. So my stupid ass then decides, okay, we'll read The Rosie Effect. Follows this book now that they're married. And I hated this. I'll just be totally honest here. I hated this book. It was like, it's just dredged on and on and on. And it's one of those books that like, it starts off, they're married, you know they're married, so it's like, okay, what's gonna happen? Because something's gotta happen for like 300 and some pages. And by the end of the book, I just really hated Dawn, and I just didn't care for Rosie. Yeah, anyway. This was not that good. This, not bad. It's okay. This, I hated. So I gave this one, I think, 3 stars, and I definitely gave this one 2, because I did not like this. Alright, then I read The Book Thief by Marcus Zusak, and this was one I found at the thrift store, and I was like, this is a book I should read, I've heard about this. And for some reason, I just grabbed this and was like, oh, The Book Thief. It's about a girl that steals books. Never put 2 and 2 together. Literally didn't even read the back. Never put 2 and 2 together that this focuses around the Second World War and about being in Nazi Germany. It literally says the first line in the back, it's 1939 Nazi Germany. I didn't get any of that. And so one thing you guys will sort of learn about me is I don't like reading about war. I think it's just fucking depressing. It's something that happened. I can, you know, acknowledge that, but I don't necessarily want to fill my mind with that. However, this was great. It's told in a very unique perspective. The narrator himself is deaf, and I really enjoyed the unique take on that. And it was sad, it was interesting, it was playful in some elements, but ooh, I cried. I cried at this. But I didn't actually cry at the end. So, interesting. Again, it's like I felt for some of the characters, not the other ones. And yeah, I think I gave this one 4 stars because it was good. I don't know. I don't know if I'll end up watching the movie because I have a feeling I'm going to be really, really fucking depressed. Up next, I read this book, which is Tell the Wolves I'm Home. This was surprisingly really good. I had a recommendation from Sam on YouTube on the makeup community, Samantha Ravendal. She had read this and sort of mentioned on one of her Periscopes that it was a really good book. And I grabbed it, not really knowing too much about it. This book is interesting in the sense that it's set in 1987, and it's told from the view of a 14-year-old girl who sort of has one of those family crushes on her uncle. I definitely had those family members growing up that you think are like super, super cool. And so it kind of talks about her sort of crush on him in like a playful way. So then her uncle ends up passing away, and it talks about how she sort of discovers this mysterious man in her uncle's life and their relationship, and oh man, this was fantastic. This is another book that talks a lot about like family dynamic and you know, the relationship between her mother and her uncle, and her mother, and her uncle, and her uncle's friend, and the family. Oh, it was so, so good. And I like the sort of artistic element to this. Her uncle paints, like, is an artist, and it was good, and I freaking cried. Like, I cried. This one was so good. I gave this one 5 stars because I thought it was excellent. 2 sort of throwback fun books in the month of June, and the first one is Goosebumps Monster Blood, and the second one is Monster Blood 2. These aren't good. One of my favorite books growing up. Obviously, I have green hair. Loved these growing up, and I can remember, I think it was grade 2 or 3, and I ended up writing book reports on both of these, and so I saw them for like $1 at a big garage sale, and I was like, oh my god, like, I have to get these. They're short, you know, they're only, what, like they're only about 125 pages each, so I sped through these really quickly. I gave them both 2 stars because they're not good. They're really terrible, but it's more of a nostalgia thing, so grab some Goosebumps because I like them. And then the last 2 books that I read in June, kind of the same sort of similar concept, different books, but they're kind of similar. I read The Little Old Lady Who Broke All the Rules by Katharina Engelman Sundberg, and this is really funny. It's about a group of older people in like sort of a shitty old folks home, and they decide one day to sort of like escape and commit like a heist and like rob people and stuff. Anyway, it was hilarious. It was really, really good. But one thing I can say is that this was translated, I believe, from Swedish, and some of the translations were a little off, and so I felt like there wasn't very much world building. It was just sort of like the characters here, and then the characters here, and then they're doing this, and now they're there. So I kind of like, it kind of hopped all over the place, which I didn't really like. There is a companion novel to this, which I do have in my TBR, so I'm excited to see if they sort of build more on the characters and like what next they decide to do. This was just really fun. I liked it, I didn't love it, and I believe I gave this 3 stars, I want to say. It was enjoyable though, and I really love, as I mentioned a bit earlier, I love books that are told from the perspective of older people. I just really like that, so that was good. And then the other one that I liked much better, I thought this one was much, much better, and it's again kind of in the same sort of realm. This is The 100-Year-Old Man Who Climbed Out the Window and Disappeared by Jonasson. Really? But this one, again, the man is turning 100 and he decides to escape, and he's like, fuck it, I'm out. It talks about his sort of adventures that he has and the interesting people that he meets. One thing that's really cool about this book though is it's sort of told in modern day and then going back throughout his life, and it says it on the back that he has a life that's very much like Forrest Gump, which is exactly true. I equated this as Forrest Gump but for political figures. And so if you like the sort of way that Forrest Gump sort of accidentally gets himself into all these situations, cultural references, you'll like this because this was very, very whimsical. I love this one. I think I gave this one 4 stars because this one was, in my opinion, much better. If you're looking for like an escapey old person book, this one, this one is better. So that is all the books that I read in the month of June. A shit ton. I read a ton, and I'm sort of on par to almost reading the same in July. It's only a couple days in July when I filmed this, but I've read 5 books so far in July, and it's like the 4th. I do hope you guys enjoyed this. I know it's going to be super long, but maybe not all months I'll read this many books. Let me know in the comments if you've read any of these, what you think. I'd love to start up little discussions. That's one of the reasons why I'm joining BookTube, is to talk about books. So leave me any comments down below, and hope everyone is doing good, and until my next video, I will talk to all of you soon.